you don't have to go for some of the things that you buy. You have to be very keen now. You got to identify, where can I get a discount?
Think of a number. Most likely it might be completely off from the actual number. They'll know the income. People know their incomes quite well, but on the expenses side, people don't track it.
Welcome our viewers. We're here to discuss about savings and inflation. I'm joined by our colleague Charles, who is our portfolio manager. Karibu, Charles.
Yeah, thank you very much, Moses.
Yes.
Yes. So I think overall we want to discuss more about what can, during this period of high inflation, what can the common man, common woman do when it comes to the budgeting, when it comes to the savings, take advantage of, or thrive during this scenario. And also we'll touch base on a bit of debt and how you have a loan, how can you also best survive during this period, because it's a matter of thriving and surviving during these hard economic times that we are seeing currently. So I think generally when it comes to budgeting, you're more of that master on that, but I can speak a bit on it. I think what people have to take account is we're in a high inflation environment. What that means is things are becoming more expensive. We've seen the same thing occur when you go to your supermarket, or even if you own a car, or even if you're riding a matatu, your fare is more expensive. If your car, you were paying as little as maybe 120 shillings at the beginning of the year. Now you're paying almost close to 160 shillings per liter, so 40 shillings increment. So that's definitely hit your pocket. And if your income is the same, so that means you need to make certain adjustments. If the price of unga is more expensive now, if the price of oil is more expensive, and generally just your basic commodities, be it bread, milk, you're seeing some price increment on that, which is your sugar, So we're seeing a lot of prices go up. So if you're still earning the same thing, and for most Kenyans that's the same thing, where they're earning the same thing they were earning back in December, and maybe others have maybe even, unfortunately, maybe even lost some of their jobs during this period, then there's that need to look at your budget and ask yourself what are the main things that you need to account for. We always encourage on this side of things, where we're advising our people who are looking to invest, to always save something. There is that common understanding to save at least 10%. There's an encouragement to even save 20% of your income, and or at the very least save something. But also now look at what are the things that you need to spend on, which I think are more of the basic goods. So it might need you to sort of tighten your belt and focus on spending on the key things that you need, as opposed to more of impulse spending. Let's say you're at the supermarket, you're there to buy bread, milk, your unga or your flour and sugar, and you see some chocolate somewhere or something like that. So during this period it might be very difficult for that. If you're driving and you're noticing the price of your that it's becoming very difficult for you, to maintain your car, or even pay the fuel and to make it to work and come back, and you're seeing that is straining, you can now opt to take public transport and leave your car and just try to save as much coins as you can. I don't know what other advice you might have for our viewers in regard to budgeting and how to save during these hard times.
Well, thank you. For me, what I can say is that you don't have to go for some of the things that you buy. You have to be very keen now. You've got to identify, where can I get a discount? Where do you have maybe promotion? Where things are sold at a certain lower price compared to the others, there you can go and get one or two items. And sometimes you don't have to go to these big brands. It may force you to go to that lower market, whereby you can get a good quality goods, but it's at a better price compared to whereby you're not just buying the name, but here you're buying the quality goods for consumption. and I say one needs a budget. And I say this is one, I call it an investor's budget. And an investor's budget says that at the top you have the sources of the income. All the sources of income, both passive and active. And what we say by active, it is what you are paid from by working, trading your time, your skills, and your talent to get paid for the 8 hours you worked in a day. And then we say you also need to have what you call a passive income. Passive income, this is an income that comes as a result of maybe your money working hard for you. You bought maybe some stocks that are giving you dividends. You bought a security or an asset that is giving you interest at the end of the month. Then you can say my income, it is both passive and active. Then what we say is that the next thing in this budget, you ought to consider what we call paying yourself. And in this time of the rising cost of inflation and all that, you don't have to forget yourself. Because what will happen, you'll pay others and you forget yourself. And we say you need to pay yourself at this point by making sure you're setting aside something in form of savings and invest. You save, let's say 5,000 or 1,000, make sure that 1,000 you have saved, you have invested at an investment that is an investment vehicle that is giving you more than 7.1% to hedge against inflation. So then from there, after you pay yourself, now you can consider paying others. Those things that you know very well in your budget, they are not basic. These are things that you can do without. At this point, you need to adjust, but don't compromise paying yourself to pay others. So if there is something in your budget you find that this thing I don't need it for now, I can hold, or you realize I needed to buy this thing, but it can wait for 3 months or even 6 months, then you can say, whatever I could have used to buy this, can I add it towards paying myself? And that means you're putting money in an investment vehicle to pay you back, because you are trying to secure your tomorrow by paying yourself. Then in this budget, I also talk of something we call discretionary expense. These are expenses that comes, it's not every month, but sometimes you find this month you had something, you wanted to upgrade your fridge, or you wanted to upgrade your TV set and all that. But this time you can say, I'm not going to do it. I can hold, I can wait, and try to build my paying myself or securing my tomorrow. So what you're saying, despite this inflation and the rising cost, you still have a role to pay yourself. And the budget, I think it's one of the things that will guide you to know between needs and wants, priority, which one comes first.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think the moment you sort of sit down, look at all your incomes, as you've mentioned, be it if you're an employee, your salary, let's say you've invested in, you have a money market fund or a fixed income fund somewhere, you have some shares, look at what it's bringing you on a monthly basis, totaling that up, then minusing your expenses, and making sure at least again, I think the main thing as well that you mentioned as well is the fact that make sure your income is always greater than your expenses, because you don't want to be in a deficit. Because if you're spending more than what you're bringing in, that means you're forced to, either borrow. For the most part, you're forced to borrow, and those borrowings can accumulate over time. And a lot of people we note is the fact that we don't budget. We sort of guess. If you ask someone in the month of May, which is last month, what was your expense? What was your expenses? Someone will roughly think of a number. Most likely it might be completely off from the actual number. They'll know the income. People know their incomes quite well, but on the expenses side, people don't track it. So I think during this time, it can be something we encourage our viewers to sort of sit down. It can be if you're married with your spouse, if you're just alone, just sit down and ask yourself what are the, as you mentioned, the needs. You have to pay rent, you have to buy food, transport, and the wants. Do I need to buy the home theater for the house? Do I need to, if I'm staying in this sort of house, do I need to upgrade? If I'm staying in a 1-bedroom, do I really need a 2-bedroom if I'm staying alone? Things like that, which are not really needs but wants. Maybe something that is an extra. If I own a car, do I need a second car? Such a question. So I think knowing what your expenses are, and then focusing on looking at your income, knowing what these expenses are, and now again putting focus on paying yourself first, as you said, putting some money aside that can help you in the future against this difficult time. I think will help so much. And I think we've touched something on borrowings where exactly where your income is less than your expenses. What do you think about what we can tell our viewers in regard if you have a loan, be it a loan from a bank, be it a loan from these digital apps which you can get money quick, or even if you've borrowed your cousin or your friend, like how do you manage that? Because it's now money that you owe others. It's not just you alone thinking about your income and your expense, but now an extra expense or something that can really be a worrying thing for many people is now I'm forced. There's someone who wants me to pay them because I've taken debt from them. So how do you think about that?
Actually, from the budget, it will tell you what kind of debt do you take. And we say there are two types of debts, the good debts and the bad debts. Debt is not bad if it's managed well. But if you take the debt, let's say you borrowed from your circle or from your friend and all that for consumption, definitely that's a bad debt. And it will force you to go back to your pocket to pay the loan plus the interest. And the other thing is that for good debts, you took that money and you invested maybe in an asset you bought. You invested like in a noble money market fund whereby you are earning some interest. Even if that loan you got at an interest of, let's say, 6% or even 10% or 7%, it means whatever you are getting from the investment that you got is able to adjust or to offset the interest you are paying that loan. But someone here has a loan or maybe is in debt. The first thing we tell people, such a person, is that you need to accept you're already in a hole, you're already in a pit, and you don't need to dig further, because we have this trend whereby someone borrows A to pay B and then go borrow C to come and pay A. Like it's a circle. What that does is it becomes, debt is addictive. You become, every day you are borrowing your reputation, and at some point you find yourself defaulting. So you tell someone you already once accept that you're already in debt. The next thing is that don't run away from your lender. If it's a bank or if it's an institution whereby you borrow this money, can you approach them for a restructuring? You can, if you find the economy is tough right now, the cost of living going high, and you're not able to service loan, you can go and renegotiate the terms of this loan. If it was a 1 year or a 6 month, you can go and negotiate for a more time. And negotiating for more time, what does is it reduces the amount you are paying for this loan. So if you are paying 5,000 every month, they can allow you to pay like 2,500. In your budget, you are able to pay that. And if it calls for, there are people who are in circles, there are people who are in different banks, and they are getting good terms, you can be able to seek for another lender buying that loan for you and get a new good terms. Though it comes with some restrictions, and not every lender is offering that opportunity. But those are ways. And maybe you may have an asset you know very well. Yes, I'm already in debt. And what happens when you're in debt? You become like a slave to the lender. So anytime you see a call, you realize this guy wants my money. You may have an asset somewhere that you can sell, that you can put in the market, sell, and pay that loan, and become you release that pressure of every month of someone is asking for money. You try to, now this money that you have sold the asset, you have paid them, at least you are left with something. And your journey towards paying yourself continues. Because if you have a loan that you are paying, it means you are like stopping everything else to continue paying this loan. So what if it says that let's take good debts, and even if you're in debt, you want to pay yourself, you need to pay yourself. You just need to have an approach towards that.
I fully agree. I think make a lot of sense in regard to how everyone should look at that. In that, again, debt is not good or bad. I know some family households, that is the worst thing. You should never take that. I think debt should be examined before you do take that. Good debt, as you mentioned, is something that is funding growth, something that once you venture into be it a business, let's say you looking to get capital to start that business, and you think that the returns on that business will be able to pay off that loan, then that's a good way to look at loans, where you're expecting the returns to pay to pay the interest that is accumulated from the loan. But now, for most part, never, as you've mentioned very well, never take loans just to fund consumption. You need to stay. That's why it's very important that we've mentioned to form a budget, because once you form your budget, you will know what exactly you need, what your consumption is like, what is my expenses, and therefore if I have for example, if I have 100,000 that I'm making every month, for instance, I know very well that whatever my expenses are, I need to keep it below 100,000 within the month. Whatever I do, I need to keep it below. If it's moving out, well, let's say I'm paying almost over, let's say I'm paying 40,000 or 50,000 on rent, then that's gonna be very difficult, because that's gonna leave you with half the amount to pay off. And if you, let's say you're doing 50,000 on rent increases to 55,000, and then now the rest of the 45,000 is taken up by, let's say you're paying for, you know, transport, you're paying for food, let's say you're even paying some fees, let's say you have a child, you're paying some fees, and now it gets you to maybe your expenses now is like 130,000. So that means I have income of 100, I have expenses of 130, and for the most part people don't even know they have that 130 because they're not tracking. So that means I have to borrow someone. It can be, you know, wherever I borrow. So that means if I'm doing 130 every month, by the end of the year it's basically that 30,000 times 12, which is 360,000 in the whole. And most people don't give, institutions or even people don't give you loans. You have to pay something on top, which is now the interest. So it becomes very difficult for you, and you're not sinking completely, but you're always trying to float, you know what I mean. So I do think for the most part, what you've mentioned around debt is important for people to look good debt versus bad debt, and try to see what they can do in terms of managing that debt and paying it as fast as they can, which I think is very important.
Wow, great. Thank you for our viewers. I hope you've learned a lot, and see you in the next video.